Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Basketball Conference, the ACC Football Podcast. My name's Joey Weaver. He is Mike McDaniel. Mike, welcome back. How's it going? You ready to talk about some Week 13 games?
I watched a decent amount of ACC football this weekend. I will say that. And the other thing I want to say just off the top, let's get this over with. Because this was one of the highlights of my weekend, Joey.
Yeah?
You got some Falcon sound for me, don't you?
Oh, buddy. Buddy, do we.
Bowling Green 38, Ball State 13. There's no sense in recapping this later. Bowling Green covers 10.5.
The most important thing that happened all weekend.
They cover 10.5, and more importantly, we are over 6.5 wins on the season. We are home, Joey. We are home.
That's right.
You know, some haters will say that I doubted Bowling Green in the middle of the schedule, but let the haters know that we are over the win total.
That's right. That's right. We got there as intended. Mike, I think that's all I got on Week 13. Anything else before we work on getting out of here?
That's it. We're done. We're done.
That's all we got to talk about here.
minute 38. I mean, you and I can go ahead and edit this up. Scott's not with us tonight. We could go ahead and edit this up. We can tell Scott to take the week off. I think we're good to go. Yeah. By the way, Scott was outstanding filling in for me, by the way. I listened to both shows. You guys killed it. Great work, Joey, by you as always. Excellent work, though. Want to give a special shout-out to producer Scott for filling in, doing his research, coming with the goods, man. He had stats. He was well-read, well-researched. He was ready to rock, man. He filled in admirably.
Scott was doing two people's jobs the whole time with the timestamps, and he did the editing and everything afterwards. Scott was awesome here.
That's why home field, Rhoback, and Section 103 pay Scott the big bucks.
That's right. That's exactly right. Exactly right. Mike, we had a whole bunch of stuff that happened in Week 13. Do you want to get into that, starting with a Rhoback Rapid recap?
Yeah, that means with no Scott tonight, that means I'm putting 10 minutes on the clock on this side, aren't I?
That's right. That's right. By the way, we're live, youtube.com/@the-ACC. Hang on. We are live, youtube.com/@the-ACC Football Podcast. It is a few minutes before 11 o'clock on Sunday night here, November the 24th. Hope you all had a great weekend. Hope you enjoyed the games. We're looking forward to Thanksgiving week, and we got some games coming up here later this week. But shout out to the people in the chat. We got Chris Grondin, we got N. Dennis 133 with us. Lots of conversation around what the Commonwealth Cup should be called this year, so that's going well. Yep. Appreciate the people joining us. If you want to come join us, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon. You'll find out when we're going to go live.
For sure. Did you hear the premature quacking?
I did not.
Oh, good. Okay.
Nobody deserves premature quacking, Mike.
That's right. That's the worst kind of premature thing you could do. For sure.
We're back, baby.
We are. Absolutely. Will Secor, excited for awards.
Christian Neal's with us. By the way, Chris Grondin, I think this is an important question he asked to start with. Topic of discussion, should the Commonwealth Cup be renamed to the Commonwealth Mid-Off? And for this year, yeah, that's on the table.
The winner is the loser, and you get to fire your coach. Is that how it works?
Valid point.
Oh, man.
That's a point of discussion coming into that game is, do both coaches survive this one?
I have some thoughts.
Yeah.
You may imagine. I have some thoughts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do we have the timer queued up here, Mike?
Ready to rock, baby. 10 minutes.
There we go. 10 minutes on the clock. We will do a Rhoback Rapid recap here, looking back at all the games in the ACC here, starting in 3, 2, 1. We'll start Thursday night, Georgia Tech 30, NC State 29, a pretty bizarre but perfectly ACC Thursday night game. It was freshman QB against freshman QB, and buddy, that game delivered on two freshman quarterbacks doing freshman quarterback things for better and worse.
A total mess. Personal highlight was the fact that Georgia Tech's post-game win expectancy here was 9%. And to which you noted was just an ode to them not finishing drives here. Some red zone stuff going on. bad turnovers by both quarterbacks. Georgia Tech did the whole rotating quarterbacks thing with Haynes King and Aaron Philo once again, because Haynes King really cannot throw right now. He's so banged up. That's still happening. CJ Bailey, my God, there were some bad throws by Bailey. There were some good ones, but there were some bad throws in this game by Bailey. I hope you enjoyed the turnover fest, because that's exactly what this was. This was peak Thursday night ACC football. We have had some weeknight bangers this year. This one delivered.
If you had CJ Bailey, Aaron Philo over 3.5 rushing touchdowns in this game, you'd probably be retired by now, because just who could have possibly seen this game going with CJ Bailey with 3 scores on the ground? But just very wacky game. Lots to get into. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. On Saturday, number 8, Miami 42.
Not what you want.
Yeah, not really. Number 8, Miami 42, Wake 14. This game was a lot closer than that score says, Mike. This was a 1-score game into the fourth quarter, as Miami continues to do the Miami thing of kind of screw around, mess around, and then at some point hit the gas and run away. But it doesn't seem like Miami really changed anything or looked any different coming off that Georgia Tech loss a couple weeks ago.
I would just go ahead and advise Miami to not do that next week against Syracuse. That's all I'll say on this game.
I would agree. Number 13, SMU 33, Virginia 7. A game that I think we both kind of thought Virginia had a chance to make it close and maybe even play spoiler. And, buddy, we got some problems in Charlottesville. And SMU locked up a spot in Charlotte.
They are in. Congratulations to SMU making the conference title game in their first year in the ACC. UVA's got a Anthony Calandria problem. They've got a potential Des Kitchens problem. They've maybe got a Tony Elliott problem again. The second half of the year, we knew the schedule was going to get tougher, but man, UVA has not been looking very competitive here down the stretch. And with the team that they were fielding early in the year, you would hope that some of these results would be a little bit closer.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not the what, it's the how, and it's not that you're losing, it's how badly you're losing and how you look in the losses that starts to become a problem for Virginia at this point.
Yeah, it's not great.
Nope. SMU. I think this score makes it look like it was a total blowout runaway. It was more of a crock-potting than a flash fry, though. I mean, this was just kind of a slow, progressive building of the lead throughout the game for SMU. So they, did a nice job. You won the game by a whole lot of points, and really I thought this was probably mostly about SMU's defense holding down Virginia's offense and causing issues for them.
Yeah, for sure. It was just not UVA just did not look like they belonged here, which I think is the real problem considering what we've said about SMU. On this podcast this year.
Yeah. Number 17, Clemson 51, the Citadel 14.
Didn't watch a minute of it. Let's move on.
Yep. Nope. We're good. Syracuse 31, UConn 24. A game where UConn scores pretty late to ruin the cover here for Syracuse, but
yeah,
I mean, Syracuse looked good here. They still cannot run the ball for anything, but this was never really in doubt. It was just they just never really were able to completely pull away and really turn this into a blowout here, which isn't the worst criticism, but like you would like to think that if they were peaking at this time of the year that they would have been able to win this game by more.
I'm with you. Really nice game by Kyle McCord, threw for almost 500 yards. There were some explosives that UConn hit in the running game that, let's just say, Syracuse is going to want to clean up before they play Miami.
Yeah, that would be helpful for them. Syracuse passing game, though, looks in prime form, though, going into that Miami game, for what that's worth.
Yes, for sure. No doubt about it.
Yeah, fair enough. Boston College 41, North Carolina 21, a game that was not that close. Boston College absolutely annihilated North Carolina here from the get-go. This was 41-7 with 5 minutes left. North Carolina could not do anything on offense here. Boston College really impressive, especially on defense, the way they just completely smothered North Carolina's offense in this game.
This was probably pretty vindicating for you, considering what you've said about North Carolina this year. This reeked of Carolina being like, oh, we made a bowl game. Perfect. We didn't think we were going to do that. Let's pack it in. We're done.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I felt like.
Yeah. This also made me go back and look at who did they score all these points against. As I continue to try to, like, I'm trying to validate my preseason North Carolina picks.
Somebody's got to do it.
Convince myself I'm not crazy. Like, so we'll get to that. But yeah, impressive performance from Boston College, honestly, and very much starting to seem like the move to Grayson James was not the wrong one for the Eagles.
It's looking pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
It's looking pretty good.
Sure is. Florida State 41, Charleston Southern 7. Scott had a ticket on Charleston Southern plus 33. And I mean, I would say like it came within a point of not of coming in, but Charleston Southern had to score a touchdown with under a minute left to even get it there. So
Some
credit to
sick
Florida
shit.
State.
Some sick shit from Scott. I mean, it's a low bar even for him. That's ridiculous.
I mean, it was scoreless through one quarter. It was only 17-0 at halftime. Like, Florida State was hardly dominant here, at least from the get-go. So I don't know what's going on in Tallahassee, man, but that continues to be a complete mess, to say the least.
I do. They're really bad.
Cal 24, Stanford 21. Cal wins the big game again. There was a late comeback here. Stanford was up 14-0. They were up 21-7, I think, with 20 minutes left in this game. Cal ends up scoring the final 17 points of this game. They had a long drive, an 11-play, 98-yard touchdown drive that they scored with a little under 3 minutes left to take the lead here in this game. That's a hell of a comeback from Cal. Frankie Mendoza was pretty emotional after the game. I don't know if you saw that. Like, he was fired up, man.
Bowl games still matter, kids. Don't let TV execs tell you otherwise. Bowl games still matter. Incredible for Mendoza in the postgame.
Yep, absolutely. And Dennis Mendoza with the postgame interview of the year.
Absolutely.
That's up there. It's up there. He was
up there.
Yeah, passionate, fired up. Louisville 37, Pitt 9. Holy smokes. What do you know what Louisville team is going to come out any given week? Because at this point, I don't. And also, Pitt started 7-0. They've lost 4 in a row, Mike.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't know what Louisville team is going to show up, but I got a pretty good idea now of what Pitt team is going to show up.
Yeah. Pitt has Boston College on the road next week. There is a very real possibility that we're talking about 7-0 Pitt finishing 7-5.
Yeah, which we said was on the table.
Yep. Really good from Louisville. And they kind of jumped all over Pitt here. And there were a couple of turnovers, by the way, I think that really kind of helped this get to where it got to. But, good showing for Louisville. Way to fish out the home slate. I think they're in Lexington next week, so I think this is senior day.
Nate Yarnell, definitely not Eli Holstein, by the way. You will never confuse the two.
Yeah, that whole thing I said on the pre-show or the preview about I don't know that there's a big drop-off from Holstein to Yarnell, and I think they'll be just fine. I'm rethinking that thought, Mike.
Yeah, I was going to say that was quite the take you had. Jesus.
Yeah. Well, he looked okay the week before, but he didn't look okay this week. So
yeah, fair enough.
Last one. Speaking of not looking okay this week, Duke 31, Virginia Tech 28.
I have 42 seconds, and I need a lot more than that. So, I don't usually need a lot more than that. I do
say on this specifically,
case. Yeah. On this specifically, yeah. This was just Kyron Drones didn't play. Colin Schley, the backup that we've talked about on this podcast a lot, got banged up, knocked out of the game in the first half. Pop Watson, redshirt freshman, came in, performed admirably considering the circumstances, but Duke just had no respect for Virginia Tech's pass blocking at all. Just
right.
Total system failure. Anyway, Virginia Tech lost. They got to beat UVA to make a bowl game. That's the 6th time in the last 10 years they've been in that position. So enjoy next week, everybody. Time.
There we go.
1 second.
1 second left on the clock. There we go. That recap brought to you by Rhoback.com. Use promo code GOACC20 for 20% off your first order. All things wonderful polos, athleisure. They've got pullovers and hoodies and joggers and shorts and all sorts of good stuff. I wore a Rhoback shirt to church this morning. I'll probably have them on the golf course this week as I'm out there playing, probably tomorrow, probably Wednesday. I wear them to work all the time. They're great looking. They are super comfortable, very high quality. Love all the stuff I got from Rhoback.
Yeah, we love Rhoback. We appreciate their partnership here. They joined us mid-season. They've been fantastic, giving us updates on where we're at, how we're doing, all that good stuff. And yeah, we all three of us really love Rhoback stuff. So a really easy partnership, and we're happy to continue to promote them, and we're glad they're supporting us. So.
Yep, absolutely. Shout out to Rhoback.com. Let me throw this up on the screen there. Once again, use promo code GOACC20 at checkout for 20% off your first order. And our guy, Adam Parker, we finished up with 1 second left. Better clock management than Chris Ball ever could. There it is.
Oh, man. You spelled Brent Pry wrong.
Speaking of which, where should we start, Mike?
Duke 31, Virginia Tech 28. There's only one place to start. Unfortunately, it is down in Durham for the ACC Game of the Week on ACC Network.
Banner, sorry.
No, it's okay.
I'm sure you'd rather talk about that.
I would. I would rather talk about Bowling Green. I recorded my Virginia Tech podcast a little while ago. Usually I record both of these. I record one Sunday night. I record this with you Saturday night. So usually I get my Virginia Tech take off first with you. Not the case this week because of scheduling circumstances. Here we are. Virginia Tech is total asshole at football. I mean, This is horrible. They're so bad. And this has been like 15 years of this shit. I'm so tired of it. So
it's a bit rough. Yeah.
Any thoughts? Any thoughts initially on that?
So you mentioned the Pop Watson thing. I mean, so Virginia Tech's down to its third string quarterback, and so there's things like that. Bashal Tutin is still probably not 100%, not himself. So there's some context here, especially with some of your key skill players on offense. And by the way, that was Kyron Drones was not in this game. Colin Schley started and then got knocked out with what looked like probably a concussion.
Something, yeah,
some sort of injury. He didn't play much more than I think maybe the first quarter or so. I thought Pop Watson for a third string freshman quarterback, I mean, it was fine. Like, he probably wasn't the biggest issue here. The biggest thing that stuck out to me here, Mike, and I think you kind of alluded to this. I'm sure you hit on this heavily on the Hokie Hangover. I saw you texting about it in one of our threads. Duke on like 88% of their offensive snaps was really struggling to move the ball, like less than 3 yards per play. And that's basically what we've kind of come to expect from this Duke offense. Like they're just not that good. But as we've also said on this show multiple times, Duke has a way of scheming open something where they will just randomly hit a big play here or there, and they can ride those to a touchdown here or there, to where a team that has a relatively low success rate, there is very little consistency there. They can still find ways to just randomly put up points throughout games. And you had that happen on multiple occasions in this game where, and this is where I get concerned, is that Virginia Tech's defense had some just enormous lapses in certain moments where guys are falling down and just blown assignments. And it didn't happen many times, but when it did, man, Duke made them pay for it in a massive way.
Yeah, and this was a huge issue last year. It was an issue in year one under Pry, but the roster was so bad it didn't matter. It has happened less this year, but now in 3 of Virginia Tech's 6 losses, it has been big plays in the passing game in particular that have doomed them. So think second half against Miami, Xavier Restrepo made a couple of huge plays in that game. Think about the second half against Syracuse when Virginia Tech blew that huge lead. Bunch of busted coverage plays, not great. LaQuinn Allen also ran all over him. That was just insult to injury. And then Saturday against Duke, where let's break down that offensive extravaganza for Duke on those 4 plays. Four offensive plays that cost Virginia Tech the ball game. Duke had 54 what we'll call them offensive scrimmage plays, like runs and passes. We're talking like not punts, not field goals. Okay, so went for it on fourth down. That counts. Downs 1 through 3 obviously play heavily into this here. Duke had 4 plays that went for 255 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
That's 63.75 yards per play on 4 plays. Those were the only 4 plays of the night that went over 30 yards in this game for Duke's offense. Duke also had 50 other plays that they ran in this game, Joey, for 141 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's 2.82 yards per play.
Mm-hmm.
On a down-by-down basis, on 50 plays on Saturday, Virginia Tech dominated Duke defensively. Those 4 plays that they didn't cost them the game. 2 of them were long touchdown passes from Malik Murphy to Eli Pancol. The other 2 were essentially, one of them set up Duke on the doorstep of one of their touchdowns, and another one was a key play in a touchdown drive for the Blue Devils. Okay, so even though not all 4 of those plays went for touchdowns, the other 2 that were over 30 yards were very consequential in the drive that led to points for the Blue Devils. These 4 plays really cost Virginia Tech the game on Saturday, and you needed to have them defensively because Virginia Tech was put behind the 8 ball offensively early in this game, with Colin Schley going out of the game and Pop Watson, a relatively green redshirt freshman who has not played a lot of snaps for Virginia Tech, has to come in and, not only are you the 3rd string quarterback all season long, but now you're the backup this week, and now you're being asked to run the 2-minute drill and all the protections, and Duke is sending the house, and your offensive line is bad anyway, and they played worse on Saturday night. I got some stats on that I'll read to you in a second. They're pretty harrowing.
Yeah.
It was bad, man. It was bad. It was the fan base is out on the coaching staff. I told you a few weeks ago I was out on the staff. They had a chance to win me back, obviously, because I know that Pry is not going anywhere. It's a really bad situation in Blacksburg, man. Like, Virginia Tech's in this situation now with Whit Babcock as the athletic director, where they put all their eggs in the basket of college football, which is, I think, what you need to do in this era if you're serious about it. But the issue is that Brent Pry is not doing any better than Justin Fuente did, and he's got more resources at his disposal. I'm not just talking about resources from a perspective of a better weight room or better locker rooms or that sort of thing. I'm talking like NIL. Like, there has never been more money in the Virginia Tech football program, and you're getting the same results. You robbed from Peter to pay Paul. A little inside baseball here. Virginia Tech took money that was allotted from an NIL standpoint for their men's and women's basketball programs that have been pretty good. I mean, women's basketball, they're 2 years removed from a Final Four appearance. Men's basketball, obviously a few years removed from an ACC title run, and they were very good under Buzz Williams. They have taken the money for NIL for those 2 basketball programs, put it into football. They've tanked those 2 basketball programs, and now football is still not any good. Whit Babcock, the athletic director, is going to have to wear it. I don't know when that's going to be, but he's not going to be firing Brent Pry because you don't get to hire a 3rd football coach, Joey. You don't get to do it. So he's not going to be doing the firing here. So this is going to last a while. And by the way, they're not in a position to fire Brent Pry. He's got a buyout north of almost $15 million. And they just paid a big buyout to Justin Fuente a couple years ago. They can't fire another coach right now. You can't do it, especially in the House versus NCAA settlement, all the revenue sharing that's coming down the pike. Programs do not want to fire their coaches anyway if they can avoid it. They don't want to be paying buyouts when that money could be going to retaining players and paying players for your program and the full pay-for-play era of college athletics we're going into. This is a total mess for Virginia Tech. It's come at a really bad time. Babcock, it looks like he's whiffed on 2 football hires, which is awful. All that momentum that you felt like you were gaining at the end of last year has gone to waste. This has been a really, really disappointing year. They've been banged up, yes, but even when they've been healthy, they've underperformed. This is a bad football team, Joey. It's a bad football team. They are 7.5-point favorites against UVA next week. And UVA is bad, and we'll get to them in a few minutes. But if Virginia Tech doesn't win that game, buddy, if you think it's been bad, like on Virginia Tech Twitter before,
it's about to get toxic, baby.
It's about to be more toxic than ever before, which would be quite the feat for that corner of the internet.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, and you start looking at like, oh, well, what's the 2025 recruiting class looking like? Oh, right now they're 47th in the country,
right?
And
yeah,
I don't really know where that is in the ACC, but I see they're behind Pittsburgh, they're behind Stanford, they're behind Florida State, they're behind Duke, Clemson, like. Yeah, it's not great. And I think the thing for me that really sticks out here is Virginia Tech's defense. Because Brent Pry, if nothing else, has been a long-time successful defensive coordinator. And so you would, it's an oversimplification with any head coach at times, but like if nothing else, you'd like to think that the Hokies defense would be more solid than they have been. And at least the last 2-3 weeks, there have been a lot of lapses in that defense and moments where you start questioning, like, what's the coaching doing here? And so that's the thing that brings me pause. And I guess at this point, Mike, I'm with you that it seems unlikely that he's getting fired himself.
Right.
I'm starting to wonder, like, under 3.5 assistants that survive this offseason to next year. Does he completely clear house? Like, he could.
And Ricky's on our text threads that he's in the comments tonight, obviously. I just want to bring this up really, really fast. Supposedly one of Pry's biggest accomplishments, improved recruiting. The data doesn't support it. And he's right. I mean, I think the improved recruiting thing has been, he's repaired the relationships in state because they were so bad under Fuente. But then you're not getting the top 10 talent in the state of Virginia still. So, like, how improved is it? And it doesn't improve overnight. I get it. Mm-hmm. Total mess. Anyway, to your point about the assistants, I've had discussions on my Hokie Hangover podcast about this with Ricky and Andrew. We don't know who would get fired, right? That was like a conversation we had coming into the last few games that Virginia Tech's played. Now it's like there are a bunch of different people on the table. And, is it Chris Marv, the defensive coordinator? I think you have to consider it because for as well as this defense plays at times, we're still doing this thing in year 3 where we give up explosive plays that's costing in ball games. I think he's got to be on the table. Tyler Bowen, the offensive coordinator, I think he's probably safe, but the level of up and down over the tenure so far has led to him being not the fan base's favorite figure, which I know is shocking because everybody hates their offensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. So I think Ron Crook, offensive line coach, after this performance last night, which, real quick, a real credit to Duke because their defense, I don't want to make this all about Virginia Tech, but a lot of it is. Duke is 8-3. Manny Diaz has done an incredible job in year 1. Duke is a stepping stone job, by the way. So, like, Diaz, once he gets a better job, he's going to be out. And Duke fans are going to hate hearing that. But if you looked at that stadium last night, Joey, this is a 7-win program that has a potential to get to 9 wins, maybe 10 to a bowl game. And that was I know it's Thanksgiving week, embarrassing crowd for Duke in Durham for a game at night, at home, when...
We're 3 weeks into basketball season. Stop questioning how much Duke cares about football.
It's over.
It's basketball season, baby. Let them go.
You cannot have your football. You cannot have your diehard Duke football fans, the 10 of you that are out there. We can't have you be crying in the club when Mike Elko leaves in the middle of the night for Texas A&M talking about how you don't want Duke to be a stepping stone job and then have that crowd show up last night. Just embarrassing for Duke. Anyway.
True.
The Virginia Tech offensive line coach, Ron Crook, this is the last thing I want to hit on before we wrap this game up. This is really notable. Virginia Tech's offensive line was ass last night. Very bad, right? I got some stats to support that, Joey, courtesy of Colby Crawford from VT Scoop.
Oh, boy.
Power 4 quarterbacks this year with 18 or more dropbacks. I'm going to read you some stats, okay? Average time to throw for Pop Watson on Saturday night, 3.4 seconds. That is 123rd out of 126 quarterbacks. Not great. Pressure rate by the defense on Pop Watson on Saturday night, 47.4%.
Good Lord.
That is fifth. That is fifth out of 100 quarterbacks who have faced pressure on 18 or more dropbacks this year. Fifth.
Wow.
Virginia Tech had a lot of drops last night in the receiving corps, consequential ones. Drop percentage on target throws, Joey, 14.3%.
It's too much. Can't have it.
That is 8th out of 122 quarterbacks who have had 18 or more dropbacks this year.
Yeah.
That's not good, Joey. Just offense did not play very well. Bashal Tootin actually looked healthy and played well. Ran hard in this game. Looked good. But other than that, this was very rough for Virginia Tech. Shout out to Duke, man. 8 wins. Big deal.
Yeah. Duke, 8 sacks in this game, by the way. 14 tackles for loss. I mean, that defense, and that defense specifically, by the way, with Manny Diaz and the scheme that he runs, like, that is not what you want to run out. A guy who's seeing the field for the first time. That's not the defense you want him seeing. And I'll have a little bit more on that idea a little later in the show. But that wasn't great.
No.
And Duke 8-3. Mike, where do you think Duke ranks among 8-3 teams in the country?
Look, it turns out, I tweeted this too, it turns out that Malik Murphy, who did not play particularly well, by the way, his stats look really good, but did not look very good.
3 interceptions, and I think almost every one of them was pretty horrific. Like,
it turns out that when Eli Pancol isn't running wide open through the secondary, Malik Murphy is pretty mid, right? That's kind of where I'm at.
I maintain that they're not using him right, but that's fine.
He's fine. Most weeks he does not turn the ball over like that, but
yeah. Still sub 500 or sub 50% passing, and I mean, he hit a few big ones and has a bunch of yards and 3 touchdowns. But the 3 picks were pretty rough, and I don't know. On some level, it feels like Duke got a little bit lucky here. They did just enough. How much of that is Duke doing the things right versus Virginia Tech kind of screwing it up? It's a little hard to say, but I think if anything, Duke's defense was probably the star of the night in this game. So they had a big night here.
Tyler Pfeiffer, Duke could win 10 games. That's insane. Yeah. I mean, I think they're beating Wake Forest next week.
I was going to say, Duke's going to go 9-3. Like, are you kidding me? Year 1, Manny Diaz. We thought they were going to go like 4-8. That's amazing. Yeah. Ridiculous, but amazing.
Yeah.
Duke 31, Virginia Tech 28.
Oh. Let's hit on Georgia Tech. I mean, we just spent 15 minutes on this game. Let's talk about Georgia Tech. We'll spend 15 minutes on this one, too.
There you go. We can do that.
Shout out Will.
Georgia Tech.
Shout out Will, by the way.
Yeah. Georgia Tech 30, NC State 29. Game that, where to even begin here? Again, my biggest takeaway coming away from this was 2 true freshman quarterbacks doing true freshman quarterback things, for better and for worse. And again, you had CJ Bailey, 3 interceptions. 2 of them were behind the line of scrimmage. One of them was run back for a touchdown. Another one almost run back for a touchdown. The one that was run back was serious Go ACC moment of the week potential, and honestly, Go ACC moment of the year contender. A little failed pop pass that EJ Lightsey was just Johnny on the spot in position for. He ran back for a touchdown. He threw another pass into the gut of defensive end Romello Height, who ran it back to like the 2. Georgia Tech scored the next play. So they were boosted by 2 defensive touchdowns here. NC State could not do a whole lot of anything on offense for most of this game. And then the fourth quarter started, and they ripped off 21 points. I think they scored on 3 of their final 4 drives here. And it was an interesting kind of situation, right? Because NC State on 4 drives, they went 9 plays, 75 yards, touchdown in the first half. Second half, 7 plays, 75 yards, touchdown. 6 plays, 75 yards, touchdown. 4 plays, 72 yards, touchdown. Mike, that was 75% of their yardage on those 4 possessions on the game. The other 11 possessions, they ran up about 100 yards of offense. Like, Georgia Tech's defense was causing them issues, except for those few moments that they didn't. They kept Georgia Tech in this game very much in a huge way. You mentioned Georgia Tech tried to do the Aaron Philo, Haynes King back and forth palooza that they did last week or a couple weeks ago against Miami. It did not work nearly as well this week. Haynes King, NC State did a great job of bottling up the run here in this game and kind of trying to force Georgia Tech to beat them through the air. Aaron Philo had a tough time. I got a thought on that here in a minute I'll get to. Jamal Haynes, you could see him getting visibly frustrated through the game as they really struggled to break past that first layer. I thought NC State tackled extremely well in this game. That defense played very, very well. It was a defensive, messy football game, and then you just got into the fourth quarter and things got a little bit wacky, Mike. And Aaron Philo runs in a touchdown with about 20 seconds left in this game. That was, I think, Georgia Tech's only offensive touchdown of the game. Other than Haynes King scoring on a 2-yard touchdown run after the interception set that up. So I'm not even going to count that. But in a lot of ways, a game that it feels like Georgia Tech kind of got lucky to win. And it's like if I were to play this game of good win, bad loss here, which way are you going, Mike?
Well, which side we on? Right. I think for Georgia Tech, Georgia Tech, good win, pretty fortunate. NC State, awful loss with the turnovers. I mean, the turnovers were an absolute killer in this game.
That's kind of what I'm getting at is NC State made some huge mistakes in this game. And again, it's freshman quarterback stuff. And when you're running out freshman quarterbacks, you get what you get. And sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. And CJ Bailey had some really good moments in this game. He had a few pretty terrible moments. And that's what cost NC State the game here, I thought. If you avoid those turnovers, NC State wins this game.
Yeah. This game was pretty similar to the Virginia Tech Duke game we were just talking about. The way that this kind of went with the injured quarterbacks and the way Georgia Tech's defense, when they needed a stop, they kind of folded up in the fourth quarter, which Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech have that in common. So maybe that should be the Techno Bowl next year. Like, which defense does that less often, right? They both kind of have that in common. They both, I think, are 1 and 2 in the country and not getting a stop when they need one. NC State, they ran the ball well here. I put that in quotes because it really was in the fourth quarter. I mean, that's where all of their yards came from.
I was going to say, you look at the box score, 29 carries for 253 and 4 scores. I really don't feel like that tells the story of how the game went. It was a small handful of big chunk runs, but they weren't just dominating on the ground for most of this game.
Yeah. They weren't. I do feel like, all of us took NC State with the points. I do feel like that was the right side the entire time. I will say that watching this game, I felt pretty good about that. Even when Georgia Tech was up in the second half, I felt pretty good about NC State getting home on the cover. It just didn't feel like Georgia Tech was getting separation. And then obviously the fourth quarter happened, and they were fortunate to just flat out win the game. Like, forget the separation piece. They were just flat out fortunate to win it with how the fourth quarter went. NC State takes the lead. Georgia Tech scores late. Just crazy fourth quarter. Just we've had, and I mentioned this on the Rapid React, we have had some games like this in the weeknight slate this year on Thursday and Friday nights. The games have been bangers, like incredible football games. Just if you don't have a dog in the fight. Now, if you have a dog in the fight like you and I have had in the weeknight slate, it has not been especially exciting to watch, but you're able to come out on the other side here, get this win. I think you're pretty fortunate if you're Georgia Tech to win this game. SP Plus agreed. Aaron Philo, I mean, my takeaway is that he is really good, and he's going to be really good. And if you were happy about Georgia Tech with Haynes King and what he's brought to the table in the first couple of years of the Brent Key era, you're going to be really happy about Aaron Philo, I think. He does some pretty special stuff, spinning the rock, and Georgia Tech hasn't had a quarterback like that, throw the football like that in a very, very, very long time. He's a stud.
Yeah. I don't know if that's shades of, I mean, what's the most recent example of someone that kind of reminds me of that is, I don't know, Taylor Bennett or something back in 2007, something like that. I mean, I don't know how far back you got to go. Yeah, I mean, I was impressed. I mean, Philo, you see the passing line. Yeah, he had the one interception. Honestly, that wasn't even necessarily on him. I mean, that was a pass that hit Eric Singleton in the hands and just kind of skipped off. And maybe some of that is, well, you're throwing like an 8-yard pass. Maybe don't throw it 102 miles an hour. Maybe take a little bit of something off of it. But so there's some stuff you got to learn. But yeah, he's not afraid. And that guy, he'll huck that thing down the field. And when he's in there, it very much feels like a downfield passing attack. He took some deep shots. He had one underthrow, I remember early in the game, to Singleton that it's like if it's on target, it's an easy touchdown. But because he had to kind of come back to it, it allowed NC State to do something. So I mean, if it's worst case is Haynes King decides to move on, whether to the NFL or gets big bucks to transfer somewhere else, and then Zach Pyron transfers, and if Philo's the guy next year, I'm okay with that. You can do a lot worse than that. Like,
yeah. I know we're not in the era of like telling quality players to like hit the road. I'm not suggesting that Georgia Tech should do that with Haynes King, but like if Zach Pyron is like looking elsewhere and you want to even elevate Aaron Philo to a backup next year to Haynes King, I would maybe think about doing that. Allocate your NIL dollars elsewhere. Nothing against Zach Pyron, just realistically, I mean, this is your quarterback of the future. I think this is your guy.
Right. And that honestly to me seems like the most likely outcome is Haynes King back, Zach Pyron gone, Philo the backup. So, but anyways, we got a lot of ground to cover before we get to that point. But I mean, I think this was it was a good performance from Philo. One of the things I will say is if we had known when I was doing the preview that this was going to basically be the Aaron Philo show, I would have felt that much more confident in NC State getting the points. One of the things I thought that really showed out during this game was talk about freshman quarterback stuff. Remember that NC State runs a 3-3-5 defense, and that defense has been improving, but that 3-3-5 defense especially is one that is really tricky for quarterbacks to get used to reading and know what to do and where to go with the ball. I thought NC State had him, not in a total blender, but they had some good stuff going in this game, and they were able to stop the run effectively. It didn't feel like Georgia Tech could ever really get in rhythm on offense. And so I think if you're questioning like why couldn't that happen? I think that's some of what you were seeing is a true freshman quarterback trying to figure out this 3-3-5 defense. And that's again 3-3-5, that's what TCU ran that got him to the national title game a couple of years ago. Like you can do some stuff there with that defensive scheme. And I felt like that probably played in here to some of the discomfort that we saw from Aaron Philo at times during this game.
For sure. I will say this from Alexis Solaris, and we'll talk about this on the preview. Game did not make you feel good about Friday against Georgia. I mean, yeah. I don't think I haven't made my Georgia thoughts known on this podcast. I do not think Georgia is actually a national title contender, but I do think they're pretty good. This is we'll talk about it on the preview. This is a tough matchup for Georgia Tech. Not that it's ever an easy matchup, but I think given the way things have transpired for Georgia Tech at quarterback and Aaron Philo going up against NC State's defense versus going up against like Georgia's defense are obviously two totally different things. I think the Haynes King rushing the football experiment kind of died, right? Like if he's not going to be able to do both, that's probably not something that's going to be successful moving forward. I think NC State kind of snuffed that out with their defense is pretty good. And I think that's obviously problematic. I worry about, I think Georgia Tech defensively can hang a little bit, especially with Carson Beck's propensity to throw the ball to the other team. But I do worry about the dam breaking, similar to how it did in the fourth quarter of this game against NC State, which this year has not been particularly apt at running the football, and they had a lot of success in the fourth quarter. And against a team like Georgia, all it takes is a few plays like that, right? So, but look, I mean, Georgia Tech sitting here 7-4 going into a Georgia game. Give yourself a puncher's chance. Feel good about it. They're 3-touchdown underdogs, but like you go into it feeling good about how this season has gone going into that final game. I think that's really all you can ask for.
Playing with house money. Only thing I'm going to mention on that game, we'll preview that later this week. Only thing I'm going to mention on that game, do you think there's any chance that Georgia Tech could get to 225 yards on the ground against Georgia?
Yeah, I do. Did you see what UMass did?
That's exactly why I was bringing it up, because UMass just got to 226 on the ground. I mean, so, stranger things have happened, but I don't know. The NC State of it all, by the way, I want to mention this too. This is a really tough loss for NC State to stomach, I think, with the way that this season has gone. And again, the way that I mentioned off the top that it feels like NC State with the mistakes is kind of what cost them the game here. That you probably should have won this game. Again, SP Plus says NC State had a 91% chance of winning, and they didn't. And now you got to go to Chapel Hill next week to try to make a bowl game.
Yeah.
This is tough to stomach. And, buddy, if you don't win next week and you miss a bowl game this year where you started the year ranked, really tough to stomach.
Yeah, NC State is almost from an expectation standpoint in a worse position than Virginia Tech was. Like they're kind of in the same spot, but NC State had even more expectations than Virginia Tech did, and they're going to end up right around the same spot, even regardless of what happens in the final week of the regular season.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a tough one. And by the way, NC State going to Chapel Hill, UNC just laid their egg. They did their no-show thing, right? And we'll talk about that game maybe in a second. They just did their no-show thing. So are they going to no-show a rivalry game when they've already made a bowl game and everything? Like, they're probably not going to no-show this game. NC State wants a bowl game. UNC would like nothing more than to keep them out of it. Like, North Carolina's going to show up to this one at home on senior day. So have fun with that. This was the one to win, man.
Yeah. This was your opportunity. Last weekend's Duke was kind of your opportunity, too, and you lost that one, too.
Well, yeah. Dumb stuff from NC State, man, really dumb. And like the thing too is, NC State, like Georgia Tech's a better team than North Carolina, I think, especially when operating like full capacity, everybody healthy. So like is North Carolina the tougher, like the tougher opponent at this stage in the game with Georgia Tech's injuries and everything? I mean, maybe not, but I think given the circumstances of the matchup, final week of the regular season, rivalry game, the impetus of keeping your rival out of a bowl game, this is going to be a hell game for NC State next week. Hell game.
Yeah.
Enjoy
this is 60 minutes of anxiety for Wolfpack fans, I would have to imagine. So
yeah, enjoy that.
Good luck. I'm there with you. I'm rooting for you, NC State. I'm definitely not rooting for UNC. So
no. Certainly, that's not something you would ever do.
Georgia Tech 30, NC State 29. We got a big Georgia Tech contingent in the comments tonight. Good to see all the people out.
We do. Yeah, people are
getting
out
early to hell with Georgia from Nuke Jacket. Let's go.
All right. Simmer down. Boston College 41, North Carolina 21.
Yeah, whatever good vibes North Carolina had going in recent weeks, bye-bye. You just got smoked in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have too much here because this was a blowout for pretty much the entirety of the game. This was 24-7 at halftime. Huge second quarter for Boston College. North Carolina kind of no-showed this. Did not play well here. Jacoby Criswell, worst game of the season, I think, since he's taken over as a starting quarterback. Threw 3 interceptions. A couple of them were particularly bad. They could not run the ball, which is like the one thing North Carolina is really good at is running it, and they couldn't. They couldn't find a way to do it. Amari and Hampton had 11 for 53, and they kind of had to go away from that just because of game script. So they kind of threw their way out of giving the ball to Hampton a bunch, which is not what you want to do because that's what you're good at, and they found themselves in that situation. And Boston College just freaking bludgeoned UNC's defense in the running game. Just obliterated that. I mean, Grayson James played well. He threw the ball well, and you mentioned this in the rapid reaction. Like it looks like they made a good decision moving to him, right? Especially with Castellanos not really healthy, but. I mean, this was a very balanced offensive attack, but the takeaway for me is North Carolina's rushing defense. This was shades of James Madison. Like we haven't seen this kind of the rushing defense effort and this kind of performance that went this poorly since basically September. It was really, really bad, man.
Yeah, not great for North Carolina. Our guy Joe in the comments, Castellanos who?
Swing and a drive, yeah.
Great question. Keep in mind here, by the way, it was you mentioned it was 24-7 at halftime. That 7 from North Carolina was a kickoff return for a touchdown. Their offense did not get in the end zone for almost 58 entire minutes. They scored with 2 minutes and 9 seconds left, and they score with 9 seconds left in this game. So it kind of makes it look closer than it was, but this was 41-7, 55 minutes into the game. I mean, this was a total blowout. You mentioned Boston College running the hell out of the ball. They did. It wasn't like chunk play this, chunk play that. They didn't get a whole bunch of big plays out of it, but it was fairly consistent and just moving the ball and keeping North Carolina's offense off the field. And you mentioned, I mean, this kind of becomes a reverse game script from what North Carolina wants to do to be able to run the ball, leverage Amari and Hampton. They did not get the chance to. Really good win from Boston College here. They sacked Jacoby Criswell 7 times in this game, 8 tackles for loss. This kind of really brought to life what I thought might happen on the preview, where Boston College's defense could really stifle this North Carolina offense. And I want to go back to something I mentioned in the rapid recap, Mike, where as I continue trying to make sense of what North Carolina is or is not, and I look back at who are the teams that they scored a bunch of points against. They scored 31 against Wake Forest. They scored 35 against Florida State. They scored 41 against Virginia. They did score 34 against Georgia Tech, but that was mostly in like the fourth quarter. That was a comeback effort. They did not score a lot in the first 3 quarters of that game. 24 against Pitt, 20 against Duke. So
50 against James Madison, which goes out the window and you give up 70.
Yeah, well, yeah, you gave up 53 in the first half, so that was never going to be enough. But
right.
I don't know. There was a piece of me that was starting to think that this North Carolina offense really was figuring it out. And maybe it was more of a game script thing if they could kind of play from ahead and just leverage the Amari and Hampton thing. And a situation like this where they kind of got down fairly quick, that was just not going to happen.
Yeah, they thrive off their running game. They got a lot of Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech in them, where like they lead with their run, and when they have to throw when they're behind, it's like not always a great thing. That's Carolina, but on steroids because they've been dealing with a backup quarterback for most of the year, right? So this was his worst performance. It came at a really bad time, and you game scripted yourself out of the Amari and Hampton stuff that you're really good at. So I just want to correct the record on something I said, because I basically just like glossed over the Georgia Tech victory over North Carolina when Georgia Tech ran for 371. So yes, point well taken. Sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I think that's all I got here. I hate to spend like 30 minutes going through Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech and then like just glaze over these other games, but this was a beatdown from start to finish from Boston College. It's impressive, and we mentioned the Grayson James thing, and I mean, I definitely had the thought, and we'll talk about Miami here in a minute, but all the talk I've heard on game day for weeks now, well, Miami has that game going up to Syracuse next week. I almost feel like if they were going to Boston College next week, I would probably have the Eagles on the field. Like playing outdoors in the way that Boston College is going to run the ball and they're going to play defense and such. I like the way this Boston College team is playing at the moment. And I realize they lost to SMU, but I mean, coming off, you beat Syracuse a couple weeks before that. You nearly beat Louisville before that. I mean, Boston College playing pretty well here down the back half of the year, even though they're only 2-2 in the last 4 games.
Yeah, I'm with you there, and it's an interesting conversation. Which team would you less like to see? Because Syracuse is playing pretty well right now too, and I know Syracuse just went up to Boston College a few weeks back and lost, and that was kind of a crazy game, and that was a tough one to stomach. But they had the crazy comeback against Virginia Tech. Obviously beat Cal last weekend, and then we'll talk about the UConn game in a few minutes. But like, yeah, BC and Syracuse are both the 2 Northeast schools in the ACC are really trending in a good direction here down the stretch.
Yep, for sure. Boston College 41, North Carolina 21.
Let's maybe talk about Syracuse right now. How about that for a transition?
Let's do it. Syracuse 31, UConn 24. I'm not going to act like I watched this game from start to finish. I did not. This was another edition of Syracuse is the Kyle McCord show, and you get what you get. And today it was really good. And I say yesterday. Kyle McCord, 37-47, 470 yards and 2 scores. I mean, it was passing left, right, and center. LaQuint Allen ends up 20 carries for 58 yards. So again, Syracuse struggled to run the ball here, and did not struggle to throw the ball, and ended up putting up some points. UConn hung around in this game. And it felt like Syracuse was never really able to pull away. This was never more than a 2-touchdown kind of game. And so I don't think UConn's bad. UConn's 7-4, but I don't know. If I were to believe that Syracuse were playing well enough to really threaten or feel extremely dangerous with Miami coming in, I would have liked to see a little bit more of a dominant effort here, but definitely don't want to poo-poo the win. Syracuse is 8-3, and
Yeah.
I mean, playing really well right now, as you mentioned, Mike.
Yeah, maybe more importantly, they're 5-1 at home this year. So just
Mm-hmm.
going into the Miami matchup, that's something to note. We always know Syracuse is tough at home. Record doesn't always back it up. They are 5-1 at home this year.
Yep.
They, yeah, I mean, McCord was really good here. They love to throw the hell out of it. UConn's a good team to do that against. They've been pretty piss poor against the pass all year long. So pretty favorable from that standpoint from Syracuse. As I mentioned at the top of the show tonight, I did not love how Syracuse looked against the UConn run in this game. Cam Edwards averaged almost 11 yards per carry. Mel Brown had 5 carries for 41 yards. There were some explosive plays in the running game. Edwards had, I mean, it's pretty funny when looking at Cam Edwards' stat line because he rushed for 8 for 87, which sounds really good, looks really good. One of those was for 71 yards, so and that touchdown. So that's of note, right? So Syracuse did okay against him in the other 7 carries. But, yeah, this is when you're allowing UConn to establish a balanced offensive attack, that's just simply not what you want. And Syracuse allowed that to happen here, which they have a tendency to do defensively. It's been very up and down, which is why I worry about them against Miami, because Miami is like basically, as long as Cam Ward's playing quarterback, it's like add water and mix, and they're going to hang 40 or 50 on you. It's just a matter of when, not if. So that's what I worry about with Syracuse next week. I do think that game has a lot of over potential with the way Miami's defense has looked and the way that Syracuse likes to throw the football. That could be very entertaining, but I do worry about Syracuse defensively in that game against Miami. But 8-3, like I said, you're kind of playing with house money. You're going up against a top 10 team at home to end the year. You could have very well hosted College Game Day, but they decided they wanted to send the whole ESPN crew down to A&M for the second time this year after A&M just lost in 4 overtimes to Auburn, was trailing by 3 scores early in that game. I mean, give me a break.
Heaven forbid we missed that opportunity.
Yeah, so now we're doing the whole A&M Texas thing, and we got to pretend that A&M's got a real shot, which maybe they do, but I wouldn't bet money on it. Anyway.
I feel like there's a little bit of a paradox with how I feel about this Syracuse team going up against Miami, because I told you a few weeks ago, I feel like the way to beat Miami is probably by running the ball, controlling the clock, slowing the game down, limiting possessions. And I thought that was a big thing that Georgia Tech did to win that game. And yet, if I think that Syracuse has a chance against Miami, it's because the way that they're throwing the ball, and I think Miami's defense, the vulnerabilities are in the secondary. Like, I think Syracuse has a chance. It's just you gotta scheme something up that tries to neutralize Miami's pass rush. I think is really the key there. Is if you can keep Kyle McCord clean and find ways to get guys in space, make that secondary tackle, I think Syracuse is going to have a shot. So we'll talk about that later this week as we preview that game. But certainly, this is the kind of passing performance you would want to see from a team that you want to have a shot to knock off Miami in that final showdown before they go to Charlotte the week after.
I know we usually record on Saturday nights. Tonight we're recording, obviously, on Sunday night. This opened at Miami as a 12-point favorite. It has since been bet down to Syracuse plus 10.5.
Better hurry up and get it, because it might go down further than that.
I think I like Syracuse there.
If I could get Miami inside of a touchdown, I would take it. But outside of a touchdown, probably on Syracuse. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, Cuse is plus 300 on the money line, and that's what I call value because I think if this game gets shootouty and Cam Ward makes a mistake like he did against Georgia Tech, I would like to be holding that ticket.
Kyle McCord got really hot against Georgia Tech earlier this year. Like he's done that a couple times where he's all of a sudden hitting 80% of his passes and is just he's seeing the matrix and it seems like there's nothing you're going to do to stop him. If he were to do that next week, I give Syracuse a better than 1-4 chance of winning that game. Yeah, give me that. Yeah. Give me that plus 300. Sure.
I think Syracuse's offense is explosive enough in the passing game where Miami who we'll talk about next, because why not? We've just been transitioning in and out of these games so perfectly tonight.
Yeah.
Where if Miami does the thing where they just play with their food for a few quarters, I don't think you want to do that with the way Syracuse's offense has been playing of late. I just don't think that's a good idea. Even when Syracuse lost to BC, the offense looked pretty good. Like, I don't think you want to do that here.
Yep, for sure. Syracuse 31, UConn 24. Mike, before we transition any further and before I forget any further, should we remind people that these recaps brought to you by section103.com?
Yes.
The internet's premier place for all things wonderful Georgia Tech apparel. Things they got t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, something for men, women, children, babies, something for the whole family. Any Georgia Tech fan in your life, they need something from section103.com. Use promo code GOACC for 10% off your first order. Hope y'all went to see Steven and the gang at what is the damn tailgate thing? I forgot this on the preview. Anyways, whatever the Georgia Tech tailgate thing is that they do, the pregame tailgate. Steven was out there with a booth prior to the NC State game. They had some shirts, some Fleas Bobby Dodge shirts, excuse me. Hope you told him that we sent you there. I saw somebody had a sign with the Section 103 logo and the Feliz Bobby Dodge shirts on SportsCenter on Thursday afternoon as they were broadcasting live from Tech Green there. Anyways, go find stuff at section103.com. Go find this particular performance shirt. It's got Georgia Tech logo, the official Tech gold, all the official word marks, all sorts of great apparel there. Section103.com. Use promo code GOACC for 10% off your first order. Shout out to Steven and the gang. Appreciate their support.
Love you, Steven.
Love that guy.
Something real fast. Syracuse, this is their first 8-win regular season since that 10-win Eric Dungy year in 2018.
18 or 16? Or 17? 18?
16, I guess technically 2016, 2017, 18.
Okay, all right. So
if we're being
probably the fall of 17 into January of 18 or something maybe. Okay, there you go.
10-3.
Look at Syracuse. Look at Fran Brown. He's my favorite coach in the ACC, I think.
Got to shower this week.
Winners get washed. Number 8, Miami 42, Wake 14. Again, as mentioned before, this game was closer than this makes it look, right? The final score. It's 20-14 with 10 minutes left in the game. And once again, Miami gets hot. They go down and score a touchdown. It's a 2-touchdown game. And then at that point, Wake with a pretty brutal mistake there. What happened here? Hang on. I had it. Did they fumble the kickoff? Is that what it was?
Yeah. Let me.
Where did it go? Anyways. Yeah. So Miami goes up 2 touchdowns, and then I think there was an immediate turnover, and Miami goes down and scores again, and it's 35-14, and it felt like that was really kind of it. Where is it?
It was a fumble.
Notes?
Yeah, it was a fumble. I was trying to find the right point in the game where this happened. They fumbled the kickoff with like 8 minutes to play in the fourth quarter. Miami had just scored, right? Cam Ward had the touchdown run. Then there was a fumble on the ensuing kickoff, and Miami scored 3 plays later. So that's when the game flipped. That's when it was over. We went from close game to the game was a wrap in a span of about 4 plays. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's and I mean, when I say that it wasn't that big a blowout, I mean Miami did have another 300 yards of offense from what Wake had. So like, it's not like Wake was really able to move the ball through the air or on the ground in this game. So I don't want to act like that there was a real threat that they might have won this game in a lot of ways, but for a lot of it, they were just one play away. But
I mean, Miami had Miami, like Wake Forest scores on a pick 6 in the first half. Miami had a fumble in here as well. There were just some issues with turnovers, which we've seen lately from Miami. But then on top of that, just like the whole not finishing drives thing for the first 3 quarters. And then when it was winning time, they finished drives, right? They were obviously they scored to go up 2 scores, 28-14. You get the turnover. on the ensuing kickoff, and you go in and score a couple plays later to get your separation that you needed. But then Wake's obviously going for it because now you're down a few scores late. They're obviously going for it. They turn it over on downs. Miami scores in 4 plays again. So I mean, they just hit the gas right when they needed to. And Wake Forest had the fumble on the kickoff, and then they had the turnover on downs to kind of expedite things and keep this moving in the fourth quarter for Miami. So you couldn't finish drives the entire game. When the game was in the balance, you found a way to figure it out, which is what Miami has done this year, right? So.
Yeah. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, Miami keeps kind of getting away with it in a way. And, I mean, again, that's been enough against most of the ACC teams that they've played. And we'll see how that goes as the season continues to go on. But another Miami game the way it has been all year.
I mean, they're beating the allegations. If they get by Syracuse, they're going to be favored against SMU in the title game. They're even, I mean, it's starting to look like even if they lose to SMU in the title game and they just look competitive doing it, they're probably still going to make the bracket. So I think that we're going to be living in a world where Miami is going to be a college football playoff team if they beat Syracuse, because if they don't, they are not going to Charlotte, I believe. So
and at that point,
if Clemson will slide in kind of regardless of what happens, obviously, in their non-con game against South Carolina.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this might be the point where we can talk real quick. Wake, by the way, it's not great. I don't have anything new there.
Poorly.
We've done that whole thing already, and they're 4-7. They're going to be an underdog to Duke next week. They might be 4-8, and we'll see what the offseason has to hold for this program because there could be changes. There could be.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, Mike, Miami, a win against Syracuse puts them in Charlotte to play SMU. If that happens, and if Clemson beats South Carolina next week, given everything else that happened this weekend in college football with 3 different SEC teams losing to unranked teams, you had multiple top end of the Big 12 teams getting beaten. Does the ACC quietly have a chance to be a 3-bid league, or is that
I don't think so.
Really giving a lot of credit to the committee, thinking that they might be unbiased towards the ACC patch on these teams' jerseys?
There is more likely that a 3-loss SEC team gets in than 3 ACC teams making the 12-team playoff. I also think it's more likely that there's a 3-loss SEC team getting into the 12-team playoff. I think that's more likely than 2 Big 12 teams getting in. So I would be pretty surprised, right? Clemson's losses look pretty good. Like the Louisville one is aging a little bit better than maybe it did at the time. Like especially if Louisville goes to Lexington and beats Kentucky and finishes the year 8-4, like how bad is that loss really? And then your other loss is to Georgia, which if the committee is going to do this whole we are the SEC thing, because Greg Sankey is going to be freaking unbearable the next couple of weeks. I can't stand that guy. We're going to have to listen to him the next few weeks, talk about how great the conference is and how we need to have a bunch of these 3-loss teams in consideration. He's going to be beating the drum for Alabama that just got absolutely destroyed by a bad Oklahoma team in Norman.
Not good Oklahoma team. Yeah.
Alabama is out. They should be out. We should not hear from them again this season. Tough titties for Caleb DeBoer, right, to lose that game in Norman against Brent Venables, who does not really have a quarterback. Like Jackson Arnold has been a mixed bag. Anyway, I can't do the 3-loss Alabama thing. There's some potential for the 3-loss South Carolina thing, especially if they beat Clemson. I think there's some potential there. But, yeah, Sankey's going to be pretty unbearable. I think it's unlikely that the ACC gets 3 in. Obviously, in that scenario I just laid out, that would require South Carolina beating Clemson next week. Right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
We'll see. That'll be a pretty competitive game.
Put Tulane in. I told you in the group chat, if the SEC gets a 3-loss team in, I might be done watching college football. Like, give me a friggin' break. And maybe this is the problem with the fact that we've created a playoff that needs 12 teams to be put in. It's
But
just
only
that's
like
just too
4
many.
can win the title. Yeah.
Yeah. Like in 4 might even be stretching it. But like,
You're right. Yeah.
why are we giving slots to 3 You're like the 5th best team in your own conference. You don't deserve to play to be the best team in the country. Give me a break.
I know.
I will be so pissed. And especially, again, Clemson beats South Carolina, right? That's probably their best win of the year on paper with all the other, stuff on paper. How are you putting in a 3-loss Ole Miss, a 3-loss Alabama, a 3-loss Texas A&M, whoever, over 2-loss SMU,
Yeah.
2-loss Clemson, 2-loss Miami? Like, I would be beside myself.
Yeah.
Not saying that the ACC definitely needs 3 in. I'm just saying that whoever makes it in over one or more of the ACC's top 3 teams
Yeah.
needs to make sense. And 3-loss SEC teams don't make sense to me at all. Absolutely not.
I think unfortunately, it's kind of the first year is kind of the perfect storm for this to happen also, because the ACC, relatively speaking, at the top has been weak. I mean, Clemson played with its food against Virginia Tech and like hasn't looked phenomenal all the time. That Louisville loss was really ugly. How it looked, how they played has not looked beautiful, right? And then they were pretty lucky to win the Pitt game last week. So like Clemson's got kind of that stuff going on, and they are like the 3rd best team. I think Clemson would beat SMU. They're the 3rd best team in the ACC, right? So that's kind of rough. The Big 12, they've all just kind of beaten each other up, and they all have like 3 and 4 losses. So that's really rough.
Yeah.
Because you don't have like the couple of good teams at the top in the Big 12, and that's kind of a mess. So they're probably only getting 1 team in. And then the group of 5, I think, has been relatively weak. Like Tulane looks pretty good now, right? They got a couple bad losses on the schedule. Army's been good, but like we all know, like look what Notre Dame just did to Army. Like we know what happens to Army when they get into the field. Versus like Boise State, who has a generational running back in Genty and a pretty good defense, where I think Boise could get into the 12 team and maybe win a game, right? And maybe do some damage there from that standpoint. So like the group of 5 has been relatively weak. The ACC and Big 12, ACC has been in a much better spot than the Big 12 this year. The Big 12 just got a bunch of 3 and 4 loss teams. That's been a conference that's been a total mess. I think that's kind of like the perfect storm that leads to the SEC having a 3-loss team being considered. But anyway, that we're an ACC football podcast. I think this is probably a 2-bid league. Wouldn't shock me if it's only 1 team that gets in. But with the way things went this weekend, especially with the SEC just freaking imploding from the 3:30 window on, I think it's pretty likely that the ACC gets the 2 representatives in the field from the conference title game. Outside chance that 10-2 Clemson gets in, not going to Charlotte, right? Outside shot.
Yeah.
But
Only thing I'll add
it's only
here.
2.
Only thing I want to add is I do think some of this comes down to, are we emphasizing how good are your wins, or are we emphasizing how bad are your losses?
Depends on who you're talking about.
Well, yeah, Clemson, well, you lost to Georgia. Well, Georgia's going to be in the playoff almost certainly, unless Georgia Tech does the funniest possible thing on Friday. So Georgia will probably be in. All right, so that's not that bad of a loss. And they lost to Louisville, who's, as you said, they're a win away from being 8-4. Well, Alabama just lost to an Oklahoma team that was 5-5. A&M lost to an Auburn team that was 4-6. And Ole Miss lost to a Florida team that was 5-5, I think, at the time, right? Like, it's not like any of those are decent losses, and they all happened in the second to last game of the year.
Yeah.
So, there's recency and there's bad losses in there, all that stuff. So, I don't know. It's a total mess. I don't envy the committee, but I think there is going to be some signal here of whether, are we trying to put in the, quote, 12 best teams? Are we trying to put in the 12 most deserving teams, or are we trying to put in the 12 teams that are going to get us the best TV ratings based on logos on the helmet?
Losing
And
games has to matter at some point. And Sankey's going to do
doesn't
the
it?
thing. Oh, we're the most competitive league. We're this, we're that. You asked for this. You
Yeah,
lost
sorry.
games. Sorry, don't lose games next time. Tough
Yeah.
titties. I've said that again. Tough.
Either don't lose games next time, or just negotiate that you get 4 automatic bids in the next version of the playoff. Oh crap! Here we go.
Oh, there we go. Maybe Ole Miss shouldn't lose to 5-loss Florida, and maybe Georgia shouldn't lose to that Ole Miss team that lost to 5-loss Florida, and
Get
maybe
blown out
Georgia
by that Ole Miss
themselves.
team.
Maybe Georgia themselves shouldn't find themselves in a hell game against that 5-loss Florida. By the way, Florida I think is pretty good. I think they're pretty good. I think they're good.
Yep.
Maybe they shouldn't have found themselves in that game. I don't know. We're way off the rails now, but
We are.
I hate it. I hate it.
Miami 42, Wake 14. We got a few games left here, Mike. We're an hour and 15 in, and we haven't done awards yet, so we should probably roll through the rest of these. Yeah.
Step on it.
Number 13, SMU 33, Virginia 7.
Oh, that one. Crap. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, let's go there. That's good. I want to have the only conversation that matters here, and congrats to SMU clinching a spot ACC title game. SMU is really good here. They've been a good team this year. Fantastic. Virginia looked awful here.
SMU's defense sat on them the whole game, and Mike, where would you say that SMU stands among 10-1 teams in the Are they the worst 10-1 team in the country right now, or I can only carry this bit so far, so I guess try to keep it rolling. SMU's defense sat on Virginia here for basically this entire game, and I'm kind of with you that it feels like more of the conversation here is what changes are we going to see at Virginia this offseason? Because it's hard to think that we're going to be able to run this whole thing back another year with this same coaching staff completely intact. If something's got to change here. I don't know that it's going to be Tony Elliott, but coordinators. I know we had someone. Hang on, Devin Hamilton. I think came at us on Twitter, or someone did. About
it was Devin Hamilton.
It was Devin Hamilton on Twitter about Des Kitchings, the offensive coordinator for Virginia. The stats aren't great, and it doesn't seem like things are getting better there. And you feel like something has to change there because, as mentioned in the rapid recap, losing to SMU, there's no shame in that. Scoring 7 points in 60 minutes and just not really looking like you were going to threaten at all afternoon. That ain't great.
Yeah, I mean, not good. Calandria has been awful. They can't run it. They haven't been able to really run it all year. This is just Des Kitchens is the one that's probably going to be let go if they're making a coordinator change. I think he's the one.
Yeah,
it's been bad, man. And UVA's offense, they got into the tougher part of their schedule and they really regressed. And they're in a tough spot now. So this is a pretty important game in Blacksburg for bowl eligibility for both coaching staffs. That's the takeaway here. SMU, it just does this. SMU's been rolling through bad teams on their schedule, and we're going to find out. I know we got an SMU fan who's upset with us, Joe, in the comments. Clemson hasn't beaten a team with a winning record except Pitt. He's right. In what world do you think Clemson would beat SMU? I mean, in a world where they would play, I think that would happen. And then SMU is better than Miami. They just have the right logo on the helmet. I mean, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out in 2 weeks.
We'll find out in 2 weeks in all likelihood. SMU has been playing. You can only play who's in front. He's a Louisville fan. It's pretty funny, actually. That's pretty funny. I think SMU's good. They've beaten who's in front of them on the schedule, and they're 10-1, and they are probably good enough to get into the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think of SMU.
I am glad that SMU has made it to the ACC championship game, because I am incredibly curious to see how they perform against either Miami or Clemson.
Yep.
Like, I think you look at that, they beat Louisville in Louisville. They're in kind of mid-October, thereabouts. And other than that, I mean, they beat the brakes off of Pitt at a time where we weren't sure how Pitt was playing. They got Boston College at home. That was a 3-point game with 30 seconds left. I mean, we keep doing this, going through their schedule and saying what's their best win. But as you mentioned, Mike, I mean, you can only play who you have in front of you. And I don't know. I mean, again, it seems like SMU has done a lot of getting away with it this year, but it's probably more a symptom of what you've talked about, of who is the definitive, clear best team in the ACC right now. And I'm not sure that there's a really good answer to that, because even SMU, Miami, and Clemson, I'm not sure any of them is like definitely way better than everyone else in the conference right now. Like,
yeah,
it's
all flawed.
It's kind of a soft top end of the conference, and SMU is just kind of a part of that.
Yeah, I think the answer is Miami, because they have the best player, right? Like Cam Ward's best player in the conference.
Got a Heisman
right?
level quarterback, and that's a difference maker.
It's a difference maker for that program, right? It's turned them into what they are this year versus what they've been, which is like a 7-win team. The difference is Cam Ward, and he would do that on a lot of teams, right? Which is why it was such a big deal when Miami landed him, and we made it a big deal. We mentioned it on this podcast a million times. When it happened, we were like, this is the guy. This is a huge deal. This is what brings Miami to playoff level Miami. This kind of impact player quarterback. So I don't know, man. This is we'll see about SMU. They keep winning convincingly and looking good doing it. What will they look like against a Miami or a Clemson? I assume they'll be competitive. I would be surprised if they wouldn't be, right? Because of what you just mentioned. I think it's a soft top of the conference. The bigger thing for me is, like, what does SMU look like in the college football playoff? And at that point, it's like, well, you got there. Who cares, right? You got there.
If SMU beats Cal next week, and they'll be favored, that's at home. They're better than Cal. Short of them losing by 40 points in Charlotte, I will burn something down if SMU doesn't make the playoff. Like, they
at 11-2.
How good you think they are or aren't, like, yeah, they've earned it at that point. They deserve to be in. Kind of the same thing with Florida State last year. Florida State's not my favorite team to try to prop up, and you know, Lord knows their ego doesn't need a boost at this point. But going into the playoff last year, I was beside myself pissed that they didn't make it, because they deserved it, and it felt like this league kind of got screwed. So I feel like SMU, again, if you beat Cal next week and you look like you have a pulse in Charlotte, you're good. You should be in. And if not, I got a serious problem with that.
Yeah. Yep. And it's the same reason why 11-1 Indiana should be in the bracket, which I don't think there's any question about that at this point with what happened yesterday after they lost. But it's the same reason, same reasoning there.
Yep, completely. SMU had 9 sacks in this game, by the way. I just wanted to make sure we brought that up, that absolutely harassed Anthony Calandria this whole game. I don't think we really had a Tony Muskett sighting at all here.
But you might
after
next
the conversation, the conversations that we had going into this game, I kind of can't believe, especially with how it played out, how did we never get Tony Muskett here? I have no clue. But bizarre.
Yeah. This is, by the way, UVA, remember, they gave up, like, 10 sacks and 13 tackles for loss or whatever it was against North Carolina. This has been a theme. Like, I think we're seeing multiple offensive coaches fired here. We're seeing an offensive line coach. It's awful. I mean, we're seeing an OL coach opening. We're seeing an offensive coordinator opening here, I think. Keep an eye on that.
I think they'll keep Tony Elliott. Everything that we've heard from Justin Ferber and others, like, they do not want to fire Tony Elliott. I think they're going to try to avoid it if they at all can. But again, similar to Blacksburg, like, I mean, that could be a full staff, clean house, start over situation potentially,
Press a
or
button.
something close to it.
Press a button. Yep.
Yep. Number 13, SMU 33, Virginia 7. And as you mentioned, Mike, SMU clinching their appearance in Charlotte.
We have 4 games left. Only one was really competitive. One featured like 2 FBS teams playing each other. So, and then the other 2 were FCS games that we'll gloss over, right? Cal 24, Stanford 21. We need to hit on this. Absolutely need to give this a few. We got to give this a few minutes. Cal was in absolute hell here for 3 quarters, and they were behind the 8 ball. Stanford had all the momentum, and Cal just took it back. And Mendoza was freaking incredible in the 4th quarter. He was so good in the 4th quarter.
Yeah.
Just really, really impressed by Cal. The post-game, we hit on this earlier, post-game interview of the year on the field. He was emotional. He was screaming, talking about how much he loved the team. Just incredible. Talking about what making a bowl game meant to him. Just incredible television here in the second half. And obviously a really big rivalry game no matter what conference is being played in. And you could sense that. You could really feel that in this game.
Yeah. I think if you're a Stanford fan, this is such a huge missed opportunity. And I mean that kind of in 2 ways. I mean, A, you had a big lead in the big game, your biggest rivalry game. You've lost this a couple of years in a row now. Like you had Cal on the ropes in a half. And Stanford scores a touchdown to go up 21-7. They kick it off. Cal runs back to kickoff, fumbles. Stanford now has the ball in field goal range to start their drive. They go 4 plays, 2 yards. They line up to kick a field goal. They drop the snap of the field goal and aren't able to get a kickoff at all. And it's a turnover on downs. And from that moment, when you're up 2 touchdowns, Cal's next 3 offensive drives, 12 plays, 54 yards, field goal, 11 plays, 71 yards, touchdown, 11 plays, 98 yards, touchdown. And that's how Cal wins the game. Like, you had a chance to put yourself up 17, go up 3 possessions, and you drop the snap on the field goal, and then you lose. And that is brutal to sit with, especially when 2 of your 3 final offensive drives are a 3 and out and 4 plays turnover on downs, -5 yards. Like, it's a little bit of, I don't know, it's a little bit of a choke job from Stanford here, and that sucks for them. But, I mean, a huge comeback from Cal. You had to have it, and you got it.
It's kind of interesting, right? Because this has been kind of this is just what Stanford's been this year, right? Like, they're 3-8, but you look at 3 of those losses. The opener against TCU could have very well won that game. The game against Wake Forest was obviously pretty tight. You lose that game. And then to lose like this against Cal, you could very well be sitting 5-5 here playing for a bowl game at San Jose State.
Yeah.
Next week, right? Like, you're a short road favorite, or short road dog, excuse me, against San Jose State. But if you were sitting at 5-5 instead of 3-8, you might be a short road favorite. This is tough for Stanford, right? This is almost like if you spun a wheel of like most likely outcomes. Like, you think that Stanford probably wins at least 1 or 2 of those games that they lost, and you're sitting here like a fringe bowl team. So look, a bit of a lengthy rebuild for Troy Taylor. We've all acknowledged that, and I think even on the season preview, I think when I recorded with the Stanford writer Ben, name escaping me right now. He was great though. We'll have him on again. I think I said 4 wins for Stanford, and I mean, we're 3-8. They could beat San Jose State obviously to get to 4. But yeah, the story on this is the Stanford side, right? Like, this is kind of what they've been this year, and this was another loss in a bunch that have been really, really hard to swallow. On the Cal side, Cal snatches victory from the jaws of defeat. Cal has been on that side of the coin as well in some of their losses this year, actually more so than Stanford even. And so for Cal to just nut up and in the fourth quarter, for Mendoza to make some of the throws that he was making, man, when it was money time.
I mean, how cathartic was this whole thing for Cal?
I mean, how many times this year have we looked at their offense and we're like, can you find a way to put a drive like this together? And they had that happen multiple times in the fourth quarter. It was like the dam finally broke on this season that's been so frustrating for them offensively in games that have been really tight late that they've lost.
Yep.
And they found a way to string it together when it counted, consecutive possessions, and find a way to win. Huge for Cal. I understand why Mendoza was so emotional. Rivalry game, make a bowl game. It's been a tough year marred by losses where you're on the wrong side of games like this, and to find a way to do what you did in the fourth quarter, man, big time.
You talk about the importance of bowl games and getting bowl eligible. And yeah, I mean, you had to win this game or you're going to Dallas to play a top 15 team on the road, needing one win for bowl eligibility. I mean, yeah, your backs are against the wall in a big way. And yeah, to get it done and to come back and all that stuff. I mean, completely understandable. The emotion that you saw from Frankie Mendoza in that post-game interview. Huge win for Cal. Huge. They had so many brutally close losses all year. I mean, for them to have missed bowl eligibility on that would have, that sucks and a half, man. Like that would have been so bad.
Yeah.
But they got there.
I will say, Cal, I know I said some things about you in September that I think most people would like to have back, like saying you were a conference title contender. I would just like to say that maybe they were like the conference title contender that wasn't. When you look at these losses, man, the Florida State won by 5. You lose by a point at home against Miami after having a multiple score lead. You lose by 2 on the road at Pitt, by 1 to NC State. 8 points to Syracuse. Feels like 6-5. Probably 6-6 because they're likely going to lose to SMU. It's almost like the worst possible result on the season for Cal, which is what made Saturday so fun. Like that they got this win in the rivalry spot.
How easily could they be 9-2 right now, or something crazy like that? Right, like it's
right
a play here or there. Yeah. So
yeah.
Shout out to Cal. Also want to recognize that Stanford, I mean, just absolutely played their asses off in this game. And
they did. Yeah, they did. They played hard.
And that defense, 6 sacks, 11 tackles for loss. Zach Bucky had 3 sacks by himself. Ashton Daniels, 26 passing attempts and 21 carries on the ground. Like, absolutely laid it out there. And it's a shame to not win when you play that hard with the way the season's gone for Stanford here. But we'll see. I think next year's kind of an important year for Troy Taylor to show some further progress if you want people believing and kind of extending that tenure, but we'll see.
Yeah, totally agree.
Cal 24, Stanford 21.
Louisville 37, Pitt 9. I mean, we'll keep this relatively brief because this was not very competitive. But the one thing I want to say about this is really on you and I hit the button at the same time, didn't we? We did. Yeah. I am. This game really, to me, is all about what Pittsburgh has turned into once Eli Holstein got banged up.
An offensive pumpkin?
And even with Holstein healthy, just not been good over the last month. It's not been good. And Saturday was really bad. Man, not great. And Louisville, I mean, we really hit on it in the Rapid React, but like Jekyll and Hyde doesn't even begin to describe this team this year. And when they put it together, they look as good as they looked last year when they put it together. They look like they're really tough to beat. They're really athletic. Obviously, skill position players are really good. Tyler Shuck actually has been better than I expected him to be this year. And I think as a team, they're worse than I anticipated. So very weird. It's a weird Louisville year.
Yeah, very strange. Very Jekyll and Hyde. Pitt turned it over twice in the first half, turned it over 2 more times on downs, which definitely did not help things from their standpoint. But, I mean, it was 27-0 at halftime. I don't know what to say about Louisville. You just don't know what you're going to get on a weekly basis. The best I've got is going into Lexington next week. I got to see it, man. I got to see it. How many years in a row has Louisville found different ways to disappoint in that game, right? Like, I don't know if I don't even know, did they win that in the Lamar Heisman year? They might have won it in 2015. That might have been the last time they won that game. Like, that's been a bit of a cursed House of Horrors situation for Louisville. Let me look.
Wikipedia that.
Yeah, let me go look here. The Governor's Cup.
Yeah, but this is the year. While you're looking that up,
they won in 2017.
This is the year to get them. Okay, I mean, this is the year to get. I mean, Kentucky's bad. Like, it's Well, they're at least not great, right? This is the year that like Louisville needs to win this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, our guy Joe. Louisville is only good or bad, nothing in between. That's a great way of putting it, honestly. Like, you either get good Louisville or you get bad Louisville, and you're just kind of gambling on which one's going to show up in any given weekend. And I don't know. On a lot of ways, it feels like home and away doesn't really indicate which one you're going to get.
That game opened. Louisville opened up as a 3-point road favorite. That has been bet to 3.5 now.
Oh gosh, just give me Kentucky. Like,
we'll see you on the preview.
I hate it. And Joe, by the way, Joe, if you don't know, my dad was born and raised in Louisville. Louisville, for all intents and purposes, is my second team in the ACC. They're my second team in college football. Like, I'm a Louisville fan by all means. I will not be picking Louisville to win and cover as a favorite in Lexington. I don't care how bad Kentucky has been. It doesn't seem like it's mattered in recent years. Like, I gotta see it before I'm gonna do it. So, and that goes for Joe. That goes for Bourbon Hunter Dave. Like all the guys, the Louisville fans we got in the comments. Like, I want like hell for Louisville to win this game. I just don't. I gotta see it before I let myself believe that they will.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, dominant showing against a Pitt team that just pushed Clemson on to the edge. And they go into Louisville, and Louisville just smokes them because, why not? Like, I don't know, man.
Pitt,
what a league.
On the Pitt side, they got to go to Boston College next week. So enjoy.
7-0 to 7-5, the Pitt Panthers. That's gonna be an interesting offseason too.
Narduzziing, if you will.
All right, 2 left here, Mike. Louisville 37, Pitt 9.
We can make it we can make this very quick. Clemson 51, the Citadel 14. Florida State played with its food and then won 41-7 against Charleston Southern. I didn't watch a lick of either one of these, so no. I don't know what to tell you.
I did a little bit of scoreboard watching just out of the interest of producer Scott's bet on Charleston Southern plus 33.
You're right. Yeah.
And again, it took Florida State quite a while. And for what it's worth, this was a Luke Croman Hook. I don't know what we're doing there, but yeah, Luke was the quarterback for most of this game for Florida State. They ran the ball some against Charleston Southern. I don't know. Florida State is what they are. And speaking of cleaning house, I mean, they're already in progress, and probably only going to see some more of that as we go. So we'll see how that all goes.
Norvell, hot seat.
That's some Saudi money they're going to have to find to get rid of him. But
well, yeah,
doesn't seem like Florida State's above that. So
I was going to say they're looking for that anyway, aren't they?
They sure are. Yeah, Clemson over the Citadel. I don't. Something called Trent Pearman threw a pass in this game. I don't know. It's
what?
Fine.
What is that?
I don't know. I don't think that's legal in the States, but Clemson ran it out there anyways because. Yeah, I got nothing. We good?
Awards.
Let's do some awards. Oh boy, the Go ACC Moment of the Week. And there were candidates. The big one starting it off Thursday night, I think it was in the first quarter, NC State shifts into kind of a wacky formation starts to run Casey Concepcion from one side of the formation to the other. They snap it, pop pass, and it's a little bit of a whoop, and then a whoop, and then E.J. Lightsey, Johnny on the spot, linebacker for Georgia Tech, interception, runs it back to the house for a touchdown. Just a remarkably go ACC play there, Mike.
Yeah, the candidate of all candidates, certainly there. I mean, there were a couple others. Virginia had like 12 people in the fourth quarter yelling for Tony Muskett and for Elliott to be fired. It's like nobody left on the lawn, and I know we got some UVA fans in the comments that could verify the validity of it, but I saw that circulating on Twitter, that there were Tony Muskett chants by like a handful of people that were left. You know, obviously it was a blowout. Like, what?
Not a great sign.
Certainly not.
Yeah. So go ACC to all of that. Like the Brian Van Gordon Memorial You Tried Award.
Virginia Tech against explosive plays?
Yeah. Trying to cover Eli Pankel specifically. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Eli Pankel's name will come up here, and he'll come up here in a second for another award. But yeah, Virginia Tech's a good candidate. UVA's a good candidate for
Virginia's
blocking
offense
up front.
Can't do it. Yeah.
Virginia Tech trying to block up front. There are some good candidates this week.
North Carolina trying to block.
Maybe just collective offensive line play this week for several of the losers.
It was a tough scene in the league for offensive lines this week, that's for sure.
Pitt's offensive line looked horrendous.
Yep.
Yeah.
Offensive lines, you tried. We'll give it another shot next week. How's that sound?
Once again, Devin Hamilton, by the way. I was one of them, chanting for Tony Muskett and for Tony Elliott to be fired. So thank you very much.
That's right. This podcast always has boots on the ground. Devin Hamilton
figured.
Charlotte's still chanting for Tony.
I mean, I figured if there was one Virginia fan, it's either Devin Hamilton or Chris Grondin listening to this podcast or watching at 12:30 a.m. Eastern time. I figured one of them would be boots on the ground, actually participating in that cheer. You can always count on you.
Devin knows. I'll take the mouse over this staff.
Hit the music.
There you
go.
The
boy.
Kobe Bryant Memorial Volume Shooter of the Week Award. Will Secor, our guy with multiple nominations here. Wake, the run game, 40 carries for 94 yards, just everything all included. Virginia, 39 carries for 65 yards, although plenty of that Anthony Calandria sacks, which again, that was 9 of them. Calandria also 27 passing attempts for 108 yards. And then Jacoby Criswell sacks almost completely zeroed out Amarian Hampton's rushing yards.
Yeah.
So that was fun.
God.
Wake's offense had a day.
Is that Queen Elizabeth II's music?
Oh no. This is what happens when Mike comes back to the podcast, is we get the return of the unsanctioned awards.
We do. And I have two I'm giving it to this week. Number one, Pittsburgh. What the hell was that? Actually, I have 3 teams. Second one, North Carolina. This game was 41-7 in the fourth quarter. Boston College ain't that good. And because the statute of limitations is up, and because they looked so bad against SMU, I have to give it to Virginia. I'm sorry.
I was gonna stop the music just to, emphasize you saying that, and then the music stopped itself. It's like the world knows.
It's time. Okay, it's time.
It might be.
It
might be.
That was horrible by Virginia yesterday. It's time.
Yeah, that was not good.
Can I get a ruling? Can I get a ruling on that from Devin Hamilton? Is that okay? Is it okay that I did that? I need a ruling.
I think we already said we'd rather pay the buyout and hire Mickey Mouse. I think was what he said. So
Probably on board with the award nomination.
Yeah, I mean, hey,
for the first time since a very serious event, right? So,
it's okay. Look, I've been a Georgia Tech fan long enough, not that long, to remember when I was ready to fire my head coach to hire Mickey Mouse or anyone else, and it really wasn't that long ago.
Adam Parker.
I'll see Adam on the golf course on Wednesday. I'm looking forward to that.
Duke, yeah, that'll be good. You guys enjoy that. Have a few for me.
One or two,
yeah, one or two, only one or two.
That's
Devin
funny.
Hamilton. Imagine paying to watch that. Yes, he's in shambles. Devin's in shambles.
It gets better, Devin. I promise.
Yeah, maybe we'll see. Player of the week.
Maybe. Player of the week. I mean, you mentioned Eli Pankel. 5 catches for 188 and 3 scores. That's pretty good.
Yeah, not bad. Kyle McCord throwing for 470 yards. Darryl Gill for Syracuse had a huge day on the receiving end of some of those throws from Kyle McCord. 9 for 177. I got to mention this as a Hokie. Allie Jennings, who has been banged up and was hurt early in the year last year. His tenure at Virginia Tech has not gone how he wanted to. He had 6 for 158 and a touchdown, and he was really, really good against Duke. So in a losing effort, shout out Allie Jennings, man.
Yeah. Frankie Mendoza, stats don't super pop there, but, I mean, had almost 300 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air, 35 yards on the ground. That guy, I mean, again, played his tail off and dragged Cal back into a comeback win. So I'll give him honorable mention as well.
Chris Bell, 2 for 101 and touchdown for Louisville.
Yep, there you go.
That'll play. That dog will hunt. Averaging 50 yards a catch is pretty good.
Yeah, that's for sure. Team of the week. Is it Boston College? Is it SMU?
I think it's got to be. SMU was supposed to do that. Boston College. Cal.
He had a few good wins this week, for sure.
Cal.
Yep.
Louisville.
Yep. There you go. Mike, that's all I got. Anything else?
No, I mean, shout out to Charleston Southern, man. That would have been really funny if they
they should have gone for 2 there when they scored.
I would have been helping pay for Norvell's buyout. I'm not even a Florida State guy. If he found a way, I mean, I would be donating to Charleston Southern Scholarship Fund if they have one of those. Yeah, I would have been doing something. I would have, maybe send a kid there. Maybe Noah will want to go there. I don't know. I would have been doing something.
Hey, there's worse place you can go than Charleston. It's a pretty sweet town if you haven't been there.
That's what I've heard. I've not been there.
Yeah, there you go. Mike, on to week 14.
Yeah, tidy 1 hour and 48 minutes tonight. That was good.
Yeah. Well, Scott made an effort to keep the preview moving, and somehow we got done previewing all these games in under an hour, and I still don't know how, but yeah, back to your regular scheduled programming here with nearly 2 hours of recap.
I think I'm the problem. I'm a contributor.
I don't know nothing about nothing, but I think there's a Taylor Swift song about that. But
yeah. Oh, whoops.
We got 1 week left here, Mike. Week 14, the finale of the regular season, and then we got playoff selections. We got an ACC championship game. We've got bowl games coming. So we got a lot of stuff still left, but one last week of our regular kind of weekly cadence here. We do have a couple of the games on Friday, Black Friday, as it were, here in the States. Stanford playing about 4 o'clock on CBS against San Jose State, and then Georgia Tech playing in Athens at 7:30 on ABC. So we will come back, preview those, and then obviously, 9 more on Saturday afternoon, Saturday throughout the day. So we're going to come back and preview those. Mike, I was thinking maybe do that Tuesday.
Tuesday. Yep. See you
Yeah,
Tuesday.
do that. So we'll come back Tuesday. We've been doing a lot of these on Wednesday nights, but we'll probably do Tuesday night preview. Try to get that out on Wednesday so you guys got that if you're traveling for Thanksgiving, whatever it is, on Thursday. Make sure you have plenty of time to get ready for the games that are coming up this weekend. Mike, anything else before we work on getting out of here?
There's nothing left to say. I've exhausted all words. I'm done.
Yeah.
Tapped out.
Go get some rest. You'll have a good opportunity to get rest tomorrow, and then we'll probably stay up late and do it again the night after that. How's that sound?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll get one good night of sleep.
'Tis the season. In the meantime, come find us on Twitter at FTRSJoey, at Mike McDaniel SI, together at BC Podcast ACC. We're on Blue Sky, low key, at Joey Weaver at BC Podcast ACC. They're on Blue Sky. Go find us there. If you're one of the people that are on that site. Facebook, Instagram, youtube.com/at the ACC Football Podcast.
Subscribe, please. I wanted
Please
the 250. We're like 30 away, but let's try.
550, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, please help us get there. We would really appreciate that. That's a big deal for us. Yeah, if you're in the chat tonight, we've had a lot of fun. Really appreciate you guys. It's been a really good show out too, for a Sunday night show. So thank you. Mike, that's all I got. Spotify, Google, Amazon, wherever you get your audio podcasts, go find us there.
Yeah, we're good. Abbreviated closure, I think, for a long podcast.
Yeah. Makes sense. You want to come back, preview rivalry week?
See you Tuesday nights.
See you Tuesday nights. We'll see you next Tuesday. How's it sound?
Let's do it.
All right.
We'll skip a week. Who cares?
Until then, it was a subtle joke. Anyways, until next time, for Mr. Mike McDaniel, I'm Joey Weaver. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll talk to you again very, very soon. Until then, go ACC.